Hey guys, this is Dr. Callahan for week 19 Tuesday. Sorry, I forgot about it. Week 19 Friday, or 19 Tuesday for Algebra 1 semester 2. And today we're going to go over your instructional material for your study guide, first study guide for number 55 to 64, which is the very end. So we'll be done with your study guide today, and then we'll move on to the next study guide next time. All right, so you should turn over to this page right here. And so if you take a look at number 55, it's saying, what is the sum of this solution? Okay, so solution just means your answer, and your answer is what is x equal to? And what is x equal to? And if it's asking for the sum, it's basically saying add the answers together to get your final answer. And so if you take a look at this, first thing I want to do is I'm going to move this 84 over to the left side. So I have x squared plus 8x minus 84 equals 0. Okay, and then from there, remember, you got to create a chart. Your chart, this part is going to be your last. This right here on the right is going to be your middle number. Your last number is 84. Your middle number is a positive 8. So you got to ask yourself, what times what gives me a negative 84, but when I add it together, it gives me a positive 8. This is where you can actually use your calculator. So grab a calculator because you're allowed to use it on the test. 84 is a pretty big number. So it's not like something so simple where you can just automatically think about it in your head. So I would suggest you grab a calculator. My calculator is a is a graphing calculator. So it's gonna be a little bit different than yours, but that's okay. So looking at my calculator, this is what I have. And you have your calculator, so just do 84 divided by 2, or divided by 2. Start off with that. Okay, so that's 42. Well, 42 and 2 is not going to give me 8. Whether you add 42 to 2 or do 42 minus 2, it's not going to give you 8. So that's not a good combination. So then 84 divided by 3. 28. 28 and 3, not going to give me 8 if you add or subtract the two numbers. Okay, so that's not a good one. 84 divided by 4. Let's see if that works. 21 to 4, not going to give me 8. Like if you add the 21 plus 4 or 21 minus 4, not going to give me 8. So just keep trying. 83 divided by, I know 5 is not going to go into 85 because, or 83, because you see how you have a 16.6. So it's a decimal. It doesn't go through. You know what I mean? So then we're going to try 80, or, I'm sorry, 83 divided by 5. There we go. It's not going to go through. So 84 divided by 6, 14. 14 and 6, if I subtract them, does it give me 8? Yes, it does. So 6 times 14 is 84. So is it negative 6 times 14, or is it positive 6 times negative 14? Well, which one gives me a positive 8 is what you need to ask yourself. And so hopefully you guys know that the positive 14 will give me a positive 8. So my answer is negative 6 and 14. So x minus 6, x plus 14 equals 0. If I just were to solve it, which is the solution, to get x will be a positive 6, x will be a negative 14, because when you add the 6 on both sides, it's a positive 6. When you subtract the 14 on both sides, it's negative 14. So your answer here, what is a sum, which means I take this number and I add it to this number. So what is a positive 6 minus 14? It's negative 8. So your answer is A as an apple. But do you see how like they have positive 8 right there as well? So if you get your signs wrong, or if you get your signs incorrectly, then what's going to end up happening is you're going to pick C, and then your answer is not correct. Okay, so you have to be very, very careful with your signs. And that's why I say use a calculator, because you can. But yeah, that's a really good question. All right, let's go ahead and go on to the next one. Number 56. First thing I noticed right off the bat with 56 is you see 16 and 49. Those are perfect squares. And when I say perfect squares, I'm talking about 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64. And you're like, how are you getting these numbers? Because remember, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 times 6, 7 times 7, 8 times 8, right? Those are perfect squares. So you're going to set it up like this with 2 parentheses. You're going to go ahead and put an x inside. Square root of 16 is going to give you a 4. So I'm going to put 4 and 4 in the first part. Square root of 49 is a 7. So you're going to put 7 and 7. But because there's no middle number, you know that it has to be a plus and a minus because they have to have the same number to cancel each other out. You know what I mean? So that's your answer right there. But we're not done yet because you have to solve for x. If you solve for x, hopefully you know your first answer is a -7/4, and your second answer is a +7/4 because you're going to subtract the 7 divided by 4 or add the 7 divided by 4. So which one shows that answer here? And I think the only one that works is B as in boy. D is very close, but it's only a positive and it doesn't have the negative. So B is actually the better answer. Hi, how are you doing? Is this from, you borrowed it from, is it from Miss Martin or was it from? I'm Miss Martin's kid. Oh, okay. So, okay, gotcha. Thank you so much. All right, number 57. Which of the following is a solution to this? So this one looks really ugly. And when you guys look at the answers, take a look at the answers. Are the answers like a perfect whole number? No, it's like with square roots and all that other crazy stuff. So this is where you use a quadratic equation. And if you guys don't remember the quadratic equation, it's okay. It's x is equal to -b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all the way over to a. And this will be a formula they should have on the formula sheet. So let me take a look if I actually, you know what? I didn't give you the formula sheet for this one. I'm sorry, but they will have this on the formula sheet. So you don't have to memorize this. It will be on the formula sheet. And sorry, I'm just gonna pull up the formula sheet just to make sure it's on there because I don't want to tell you something and then not have it be there. So we're just gonna go ahead and make sure that it's there. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward with this question. So then what you're gonna do is with your questions right here, you need to move that 18 over. Okay, that 18 can't be there. So you have 2x squared plus 14x minus 18 equals 0 because I moved it over, so it's opposite sign. And it needs to be on one side, obviously. So then your A is 2, B is 14, C is -18. You just put them in order. And once you have them in order, you're just gonna plug it into the equation. So x is equal to negative, B is a -14, plus or minus square root of B squared. B squared is 14 times 14, so 14 squared minus 4, A is 2, C is -18, all the way over 2A, so 2 times 2. And I know this looks like a lot, but guess what? You guys can use your calculator. So your calculator is going to be your best friend, and that's where it's going to help you a lot. Okay. And don't worry, I'm going to show you guys how to use it. Okay, so then grab your calculator and we're gonna do the entire thing just on the calculator. So that way you don't have to use any PEMDAS or use any thinking involved. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna focus in first inside the square root. So we're gonna focus specifically on the square root first, okay, right there in yellow. So for those of you guys at home, this yellow part, we're gonna try to figure that out first. And after that, then we're gonna go ahead and tackle the green part right there. And the very last thing on the tackle is this orange part down there. Okay, so I'm gonna color code it for you guys so that we can see what I'm gonna do first. So inside the square in the yellow, 14 squared, just 14 squared on your calculator is 14 times 14. Enter. Oops, okay, so this one does not like it. So let me just try this one more time, 14 squared. Oh my gosh, what am I doing this? 14 squared. There we go. Seriously, come on. Okay, so that's going to be 196, right? Then you're going to take a look at where the minus is, and you have a 4 times a 2 times a negative 18. That gives you negative 144, right? So then you're going to do 196 minus negative 144. The double negative makes it a positive. So inside your square root, you're going to have 340. Do you see that right there? That's what's going to be inside your square root. So immediately you can take a look at your answer and go, ooh, which one's going to be my answer? Which one has a square root of 340? Because the one that doesn't have 340 probably is not going to be your answer. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the green part. So with the green part, do you see how it's a negative 14? So I'm going to do negative 14. And actually, I could probably just write this down. This might be just easier that way. Okay, equals. So you're going to have equals negative 14 plus or minus square root of 340 over 2 times 2 is a 4. So immediately as I'm looking at my answers here, I'm like, the problem that I see with this is this one is very close, but this is a positive. Do you see that for letter D? So that's not my answer. So obviously that means I have to do something with a square root. Like I can go ahead and break it down a little bit more. So going back to my calculator, 340 divided by 4 is 85. Do you guys see that? So 4 times 85 is 340. So I'm going to put square root of 4, square root of 85. Then do you guys agree that square root of 4 is just going to turn into a 2, right? So then do you see the 4 on the bottom? That 4 is over the 14 and it's over the 2, which means I can actually simplify the 4 with the 14 and the 2. How do I do that? I can divide everything by 2. 4 divided by 2 is a 2, right? 14 divided by 2 is a 7, right? 2 divided by 2 is going to be a 1, correct? And I have to do that to the 14 and the 2 because the division sign is over both of them. So my answer is negative 7 plus or minus square root of 85 over 2. And there's only one answer that matches that, and that is going to be C as in cat. Do you guys see that? So a lot of kids will pick D because D looks like the correct answer, and it does, but it doesn't have the, negative 14. So in which case you're going to stop and go, what else can I do? Is there anything I could do to simplify this a little bit further? And that's why this test is so dang hard, is because it does set up these little tricky things. And if you don't simplify it to the maximum, you will get it wrong. All right, number 58. Go ahead and take a moment and read it. Okay, so which equation shows you when these two equations are equal to each other? So f of x is with this equation. And if I look at f of x, I see that you see how that's a negative 1/2. So it's going to be a sad face. So I know that. There is going to be a negative 8 or a positive 8 inside the parentheses. So it's 8 unit to the left. Okay, so that's what I know so far. It's a sad face and it's 8 over to the left. So immediately when I look at that, I'm like, okay, well, it can't be B because that's moving over to the right. Well, actually, all of them kind of look, well, that's okay. We'll go ahead and not do that right here. Also, I noticed that G is equal to 8. So if it's equal to 8 and it's just Y is equal to 8, it's going to be a horizontal line at 8, right? So then immediately I'm like, okay, so it can't be the C because that's a vertical line. Do you see the vertical line goes up and down? Can't be a D because it's a vertical line goes up and down. But if you're not sure 100%, you can always take a look at the answers, which is what I'm going to do right now. And this is question number 58. So I'm going to go back to the answers just to make sure. And 58 says A as an apple. Okay. Great. So now that I have an idea, you won't have that luxury on the test, unfortunately. And so I know it's either A or B, but remember how I said you have to have yours moving over to the left. So which one is moving to the left? B is moving to the right. So A has to be it, okay? And that's where it's equal, because when you move this equation right here, the sad face, which is your f of x, with your straight line, which is g of x, that's where they're equal to each other, is when they're touching. The straight line touches the sad face line, okay? So A as an apple. So that wasn't really difficult, but you have to know that H right there means left. Why is it left? Because it's inside the parenthesis. Now the numbers outside the parenthesis, like x plus h minus h, that right there means you just go up or down. Okay, so that's how you know the difference. All right, number 59. So we're done with quadratics, which is good because that was a hard section. So now moving on to exponents. We actually talked about this back in January of this year. So it's been a while. All right, so let's take a look at this. You have a -3 exponent right there. We don't like that because it's negative. We want to make it positive. So how do I make it positive? I bring the whole thing down to the denominator. So I just put a 1 on top, and then I have 4g to the -3, h 4 +3. Do you see how that -3 became a +3 right there? Because I just moved it down, okay? Once I do that, you got to distribute that 3 to the 4, to the g, to the h, okay? So you have 1 over 4 to the 3rd. -3 times a +3 is a -9. 4 times 3 is a +12. And then you guys know, hopefully at this point, like you use your calculator, but 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. So that number becomes a 64. So immediately right now, you're like, okay, well, it can't be A and it can't be C because only B and D have 64, right? But then remember, you don't want to have a negative exponent. So like that -9 right there, how do I make that a positive? I just move it up. If I move that G up, I have G to the +9, 64 on the bottom, H to the 12. I don't move the H because it's already positive. So then which one does that match? The only one that is available that matches that is D as in dog. Good morning. All right, number 60. For number 60, it says f of x equals that, g of x equals that. H of x, which is what you're trying to find, is asking you to take f of x, which is this number right here in green, times g of x, which is this number in orange. And do you guys see how what they're asking you to do is the multiplication right there? It's timed together, so you're going to multiply it together. So I'm going to have -3c to the 1/2, parenthesis, times 2c 15 over 2 d to the -8. So you want to time it together. All right, let's try this. -3 times a 2 is a -6. So the numbers are timed, okay? C, time the C's together. What you're gonna do is you're gonna take that 1/2 and then add it to this 15 over 2. You don't multiply the exponent, you add it because there's 2 C's, okay? So what is 1/2 plus 15 over 2? Luckily, they gave you common denominator, so it's a 16 over 2, and hopefully you guys know that that's an 8. So it's C to the 8. That D is by itself, but do you see how that D is a negative? We're gonna move that D on the bottom to make that -8 into a +8. And that is your answer. So which one matches the answer right here? The only one that I see that does that is A as an apple. All right, number 61. We're almost there. 61, 62, 63. I think 60. No, there's a 65. Oh my gosh. Okay, so maybe we won't finish it. That's a lot more than I was expecting. So yeah, we'll just stop at like 64 or something. All right. What is a simplified version of this? Okay. So first thing you want to do, you have 36 and 4. If I divide it, that's going to give me a 9. Okay, so that's my first answer. Then I focus in on the m -4 and the m1. You see how there's an m on the bottom, but there's really just a 1 on the m. So what you're going to do is, because there's like a negative right there, you're going to move that m down here. So you have a 1 plus 4, because we move it down because of positive, right? So what's 1 plus 4? 5. Then we're going to take a look at ends. Okay, 6 and -2. Well, I don't like that -2, so I move it up. So what's 6 plus 2? Oh, and you know what? I totally messed this up for a second. Hold on. The m needs to go on the bottom. Sorry. It needs to go on the bottom because I moved it down to the bottom. Ends, you're going to move up. So 6 plus 2 is n to the 8. And then your last one is just the p. Do you see how the p is a -4? We're going to move that p up because we don't want a -4. So when I move it up, it's just a +4. And that's your answer. So which one matches this? I think C as in cat is the only one that is available. All right, number 62, you guys. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 62. Okay, here we go. Okay, that one looks a little bit crazy, and I totally agree. You have a -2, and notice how that -2 is like hugging the entire parenthesis. So it affects the top and the bottom. I don't like having that -2. I want to make it a positive. So if I do that, I just need to flip the denominator and the numerator. So x to the 7th goes up, y, z, 0 over 2x and -4, y to the 5th, z to the 3rd. Okay, I just flip the top and bottom. And then guess what? That -2 becomes a +2. It's a positive, okay? Now I'm going to take that 2 and multiply it to the x, y, z. We're going to do the same thing over here on the bottom, because you see the parenthesis hugs the top and bottom. Z, y, x, and 2. So you got to distribute to all of them. When you do that, 7 times 2. Notice how like this time it's multiplied, because before, if you have a squared times a to the 3rd like that, do you see how there's 2 a's right there? So you add them. So it's a to the 5th, okay? But if you have a squared and just 1a, but there's a 3 on the outside with a parenthesis, then you time them. Then it's a to the 6th. We went over this in class, but it's been a while, so I just want to make sure you guys know the difference, okay? So it's 7 times 2, which is 14. 1 times 2 is just 2. 0 times 2 is just 0. Then on the bottom, 2 to the 2nd power is 4, because 2 times 2 is 4. -4 times 2 is a -8. 5 times 2 is a 10. 3 times 2 is a 6. Okay, so this is going to be your answer, but there are a few things that I don't like about this answer, and that's the -8 right there, and also the z to the 0 power, which I just erased, but that's okay because I'm going to put it back. There we go. You guys know that z to the 0, any number to the 0 power is not 0. It is 1. If you're ever unsure of it, grab your calculator and just put 4 to the 0 power. And what does it tell you? 1. 5 to the 0 power. What does it give you? 1. 100 to the 0 power. It's always going to be 1. Okay? It's not 0, because you put down 0, you're going to mess it up. And then I'm going to move the x up. If I move the x up, there's an x on top. So what's 14 plus 8? Hopefully you guys know that's going to give you an x to the 22nd power. Then I look at the y's. Do you see how the 2 is smaller? So I always move the smaller number. So I move the 2 down. It's 10 minus 2. So I will have y to the 8 power. Make sure you put the 4 back down there. 4 doesn't move. Then I look at the z. And since that's a 1 is gone, you just put the z to the 6 back where it is. And then that 1 times x to the 22 is just x to the 22. That doesn't really change. So then which one matches this answer? X to the 22 divided by y, 4y to the 8th, z to the 6th, b as in boy. That's the only one that matches. All right, number 63. We're done with the exponents. We're moving on to square roots, okay? So this one says, which one is equivalent to that? This is, we're gonna need your calculator again, okay? So I'm gonna focus first on the square root. We're gonna first focus on the square root in the orange, then we're gonna focus the square root in the yellow, okay? So with your calculator, you wanna ask yourself, okay, what divides into 56? So 56, I could think about maybe 7, and that gives me an 8. Do you guys see that? Okay. What divides into 8? I could divide a 2, and that gives me a 4. So immediately I know, okay, well, 7 times 2 times 4 gives me 56, right? So 7, 2, 4. So I know that this is going to be broken down into square root of 7 times square root of 2 times square root of 4. Okay, that gives me 56. Well, what divides into give me 14? I know a 7 and a 2 gives me 14, right? And I do that specifically to make sure I have anything that's common. And immediately I'm saying like, okay, 7 and 7, they both have a 7 there, right? And they also have a 2 right there, which is also good as well. But I know that this 4 right here will give me a factor of 2, right? Because square root of 4 is 2. So what is that 2 times the square, or the negative 4 there? That gives me a negative 8, square root of 7, square root of 2. That's your first part of your answer right there. Minus 7 times the square root of 7 times the square root of 2. So right now, as I'm looking at this, I'm like, there's no answers that match that. But what I do also notice is that 7 and 2, they're exactly the same, right? What is this supposed to equal to? Well, 7 times 2 is the square root of 14. This is also the square root of 14. Well, aren't these exactly the same, you guys? They are the same. So then you can combine the two numbers in the front. Negative 8 minus 7 is going to give you a negative 15. But make sure you put square root of 17. And that is your answer. So the only answer that matches this is C as in cat. All right, so that's number 63. I don't know what happened to my 64. So let me go back and find it because I'm sure it's there somewhere. Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay. So we'll finish number 64 and then we'll stop. Because that was 10 questions, and you guys, and that was a lot. So if you're like, I'm not quite sure how you did some of these questions, my suggestion is make sure you guys go back and watch the videos to ensure that you guys have that. Okay, so for those of you guys on Zoom, this is how we finish number 63. All right, now we're moving on to 64. So for 64, one thing I noticed is that the square root is over the denominator and the numerator. It's over the whole thing, right? Because it's not just top or bottom, it's top and the bottom. So then first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just split it. Square root of 18 over square root of 42. Well, none of my answers match. So that means I have a little bit of more work to do. So let's break it apart. What times what gives me an 18? That is a perfect square root. I know 9 and 3. Will give me 18, but 9 is a perfect square root because square root of 9 gives me 3, right? So that's what you're thinking about in your head. And the denominator, 42 is a lot bigger, okay? So with 42, I'm thinking like I could probably use like 6 and 7. But as I'm looking at this, I'm like, nothing actually can take out of this. So let me think here. Let's try my calculator. So 42 divided by 4 is a perfect square root. Oh, but it gives me a decimal, so that's not gonna work. 42 divided by 9, still a decimal, not gonna work. 42 divided by 16. Nope, all of those numbers are not going to work. So I'm kind of stuck at this point, but that's okay. I know 6, I can break it down to a 3 and a 2, right? That's what I'm gonna break it down to, okay? So let's just see where we end up. Square root of 9 is gonna give me a 3, okay? But then do you see how there's a square root of 3 on top and a square root of 3 on the bottom? Well, that can cancel, so you just cross that out. So then what do I have left? I have a 3 on top because that's square root of 3 canceled. On the bottom, I have 7 times 2 in the square root, which is gonna give me a 12. I mean, 14, just kidding. None of this actually says that's my answer, which I don't like. Let me see here. Number 64, the answer is A as in apple, so that's good to know. Yeah, there's no way that's gonna be A as an apple. I think there's a mistake on number 64 because there's no way you can get a. Oh, you know what? I think I figured out what they were gonna do here. Yeah, I figured it out. Okay. So this is what I'm stuck with. Remember, you cannot have a square root in the denominator. So how do you get rid of that square root with a 14? You're going to multiply square root of 14 top and bottom because you can multiply everything by 1, right? And 14 divided by 14 is 1. So when I do this, this is what's going to happen. 14 times 14, the square root cancel. I just have a 14 on the bottom. On top, you're going to get 3 square root 14. And at this point, this is your answer. It's unfortunate that they don't have that as an answer here because there's no way you can get to an A right there, but this is the answer. I think they just made a mistake on this. So for next year, I'm just gonna go ahead and write down mistake. And I think that year they did have a typo there. So yeah, that will be your answer right there for number 64. All right, you guys, I'm gonna stop right here and have you guys take a look. We have 65, 66, and so technically we just have like 2 more, huh? Yeah, we can finish that like tomorrow. That's totally fine. So for the rest of the 11 minutes of class, take a look at your first study guide because that's basically it. I will highly suggest that if you do not see any of the work on there, that you guys go ahead and watch the video starting on week 18 to get caught up. So we started with a study guide last week. And so if you don't have everything there, make sure you guys get caught up with that. And so for everybody on Zoom, I hope you guys have a wonderful week and I'll see you guys next time.